Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your final breakfast bite for this modmester. We're wrapping it up. Next week, you're going to be taking your final exam. But this week, you do have a few items on the agenda and plate to be aware of. One is your team project deliverable 4. Now, this is kind of a look back piece. So take a look at the directions that are in the homework folder for this week. And just go through those questions and make sure you're answering those questions, because you were in business for a while and now what you're doing is you're kind of looking back, refocusing and seeing what happened, where did we go right, where did we go wrong, what do we need to do as far as organizational changes to our company in order to ensure that we're less likely to be involved in the type of litigation we had to deal with when we were a startup company. And you want to create an implementation plan. Where are you going moving forward, analyzing the risks and benefits of doing business over the past 3 years. So you're going to be looking at it from that standpoint. Quiz 4 is due this week, and then you have your final media quiz via Cengage that is due this week as well. So take a look at those, make sure you do that and accomplish those. That's all due by Sunday night. And then also what opens on Sunday is the final exam. So you'll have from Sunday through Wednesday to take the final exam. So mark your calendars and make sure you have that set up. But we're talking about securities regulations and consumer law this week. So pay attention to certain details of this. When we talk about consumer law, we're talking about deceptive and unfair trade practices for the most part. And we're talking about unfair business practices, things that would dupe the consumer. Things that would lead the consumer to believe something, they're buying one thing and then they're actually getting another. Price fixing also falls under consumer law. Agreements that restrain trade fall kind of under consumer law, because we look at the broad category of it. We're looking at both laws that actually directly affect the consumers and laws that from a standpoint in the back end of doing business affect consumers as well, because we have the Clayton Act, we have the Sherman Antitrust Act, and all of that is looking at making sure that we don't have monopolies or we don't have unfair business practices that will affect the consumer and affect the pricing of products and services for that consumer. But when we look at consumer law itself, then what we're looking at is labeling, we're looking at fair credit reporting, we're looking at pricing, like I said, price fixing, we're looking at advertising and whether the advertising is accurate, because sometimes you think you're going in for one thing to purchase it, but that's out of stock now because they only had 10 in stock and they didn't say that they only had 10 in the advertisement. You get there and then they're going to sell you the next high up end product in its place. So that's let's get you in and then let's sell you something else. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about consumer law. Pay attention to those things. Know your rights as a consumer. Securities law. When we talk about securities law, we're looking at the 1933 Securities Act, which started everything and goes to those initial public offerings. Then we have the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934, and that's where we're looking at the exchange of stocks and securities as they actually involve trading in the public market, but also trading in the private market, and what type of stocks, what type of offerings a company can make from a private offering standpoint without having to worry about actually filing for initial public offerings with the SEC. So you want to pay attention to those. Obviously, pay attention to sections 10B and 10B5, because that's where we get into problems with reporting and with having knowledge of things before they're actually made public and getting in trouble from that standpoint. Martha Stewart was a good example of that. And so you want to pay attention to those things as you're going through it. But be aware of the consumer rights laws as well. Know what your rights are. Know what the duties are as well with regard to inspection of products when you purchase them. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me. You're almost there, just a little bit more, and you'll be done with this modmester and moving on from BUL3310. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great week.